enough on the LA Rams there. We're going to move on to the next team here, the Arizona Cardinals. Shout out to our good friend Kyle Wells, Cardinals fan. But yeah, so I'm going over what they went. They had another busy offseason. Obviously, the big fish, adding J.J. Watt, also brought in wide receiver A.J. Green, and then cornerback wise, brought in Malcolm Butler and Darquez Denard. Got a good center from the Raiders and Rodney Hudson. Brought in another running back, James Conner. Their first round pick, Zaven Collins at 16. He's been looking really impressive. I mean, uh, we'll talk about Micah Parsons in another podcast, but him and Micah Parsons and Jeremiah Wosu-Koromoro, they've been impressive. I know it's preseason, but they've been popping, especially Zaven. And then also been hearing a lot of good things from Rondale Moore, their second wide receiver that they got in the second round out of Purdue, who really just fell due to injury concerns and such like that. And mainly losses. No more notable one, Larry Fitzgerald, who as of I think today we were talking in our group chat, kind of left the door open to maybe come back, but we'll see. Obviously, you mentioned earlier, lost Patrick Peterson, and also lost Drake Kirkpatrick at corner, lost running back Kenyon Drake, which that 1 year contract seemed to be a good decision because didn't have a great year last year. And then lost guard J.R. Sweezy, edge rusher / linebacker Hassan Reddick, and then lastly, defensive lineman Domata Pecco. So yeah, I'll throw it to you first. Again, do you think the Cardinals, they're 8-8 last year, missed out in the playoffs. They were rolling the beginning of the year, and then after the Hail Murray, it kind of fell apart. Do you think they can finally make the push? Can Kliff and the gang finally make the playoffs here in Arizona?
I have been mentally all over the place with the Cardinals. There was a point where I convinced myself that they were going to win the division, but then I reeled back on that point. And then there was a point where I thought this team is going to suck. Like they're going to be awful. And I'm now more in the middle.
Okay.
And I think my main worry for the Cardinals, like I said, I'm not going to look at the positives. The main positive for me on this team is they added a lot of really good veteran depth, like J.J. Watt, Malcolm Butler, James Conner. Like they just added a lot of guys. Rodney Hudson, like you said, who I think addressed a lot of needs from last year. But my main concern with the Cardinals is obviously number one, and I know that you're going to share this exact same thing, and I think it might be the team that you're going to pick to go last, is Kliff Kingsbury, because I think he sucks. I want the Cardinals to be good because our good friend Panda loves them, and they're just one of those teams that like they've never been like on top long enough to really like get hated, but they've had their moments where they were really good. And they also don't like have any of these super like loudmouth personalities, like the face of their franchise, Larry Fitzgerald, who is like beloved by everybody. So I want the Cardinals to be good, but part of me also feels like they might just be the exact same, which is weird to say because I think on a roster level, they got better. I think J.J. Watt is an upgrade. I think Malcolm Butler is an upgrade. Rodney Hudson is a massive upgrade. But I think that every mobile quarterback after their big year is schemed for a lot differently than they were the year before. I think there's a few quarterbacks who sort of escaped this, like Lamar Jackson. But even we saw a lot of the really good teams started to scheme for him this past year and had success against him. The Chiefs are one of them. When they play the Ravens, like it just looks so easy for them to shut down what the Ravens want to do. And I think a lot of teams are going to do that for the Cardinals this year. I think they're going to force Kyler Murray to throw on them. And not that he's a bad thrower, because I think he's fine. I think he's actually probably a better thrower than Lamar is. But I just think that the Kliff Kingsbury offense, the limited routes, the lack of creativity at times, the panicking under pressure when they are losing, I think it's going to hold them back. And it pains me to say that because, like I said, I kind of want the Cardinals to be good. Like I loved Kyler Murray last year. I wrote an article about how I think he could be an MVP candidate. I drafted him in so many of my fantasy leagues, and he paid off big time because he was a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I loved Kyler last year, but I would not be surprised if on this brink of stardom that people think he is going to ascend to, if he has a down year this year because of scheming for him specifically, and Kliff Kingsbury not being the strategist, like the chess player that can respond to those things. And that's going to force Kyler, a young quarterback, to have to try and adjust himself. And that's hard for any quarterback to do. So I think the Cardinals are going to finish either third, or if Seattle doesn't drop as much as I think they will, potentially even last in this division. But once again, that could be 8 wins. That's how good this division is. So I don't think I'm going to say they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. But I think they could finish third in the division. I'd say probably 9 wins. But I don't know. At the same time, like I said, I've been all over the place with the Cardinals, so maybe they blow up. I don't know.
So, yeah, I'm in the same boat like I alluded to. I think if I had a gun to my head or whatever, I would say I would think they're going to be the last place team. But I'm with you. I think they're going to be 7, 8, 9 winish team. And yeah, I'm with you. Worried about Kliff Kingsbury, just offensive creativeness and just answers to things. Not a lot of creativeness last year. I mean, which is once again like we mentioned last year. Throughout the year, it was weird because year one, it's like he got better and better as a play caller and play designer, and then last year it's just it all like he regressed. So that's concerning. I'm worried about the Chandler Jones holdout because that's a huge loss for them too. I mean, I'm sure if they knew that this was going to be an issue, they probably would have tried to keep Hassan Reddick. Just because as we mentioned before, edge rushers are premium, and although JJ Watt's good, he's not 20, 22 sack a year JJ Watt, so it's not like he can make up the difference for Chandler Jones. But and then Malcolm Butler, solid ad, but I'm still worried cornerback wise. I know they have Byron Murphy, but I feel like Byron Murphy's not a number one corner. Really, I think he's more of a number 2, and especially like we mentioned in this division, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett in Seattle, and then you got to go play the Rams with Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and then also twice a year you have to play Kyle Shanahan with now Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and even so, maybe Vance Joseph can be more creative this year. I think another thing that's encouraging is that Isaiah Simmons gets another offseason. He didn't really get a preseason or that much of an offseason because of COVID last year. And like I mentioned, Zaven Collins is already impressing. I think he's going to be their starting middle linebacker. Now, as to where they put Isaiah Simmons, I don't know, but I think they'll figure it out. But yeah, I don't foresee this team being anything greater than a wild card team. And I think that's what Kliff has to do to save his job. Otherwise, for our friend Kyle's sake, and just Cardinals fans in general, if you don't make the playoffs this year, and especially if the offense doesn't take the next step like it should, because you have DeAndre Hopkins, you have all these weapons. You brought in AJ Brown when you already have Andy Isabella. You have a really good receiving core, really deep receiving core. It should be better, than what it has been. So, yeah, if Kliff can't get the job done, I think you have to cut ties with him before you waste Kyler Murray's time and maybe his patience. Because once again, like you mentioned, third year for Kyler Murray, he has another 2 years. I'm assuming they're going to pick up the 5th-year option. He may not want to sign an extension if they waste his time and keep Kliff there. He may just want to say, I don't trust y'all to make the right decisions. I'm out of here. I'm going wherever team needs a quarterback next year. So, yeah, it'll be a very interesting year for the Cardinals. I know we pretty much said that for all teams, but it is a crucial year for Kliff Kingsbury and his job, in my opinion. I think in both of our opinions. So, is there anything else you want to add, or can we go to the final team here?